How terrifying is it to be lost in the ocean? Not only must one resist hunger and hypothermia, but also beware of sudden attacks by ferocious sharks. Yet, these aren't the deadliest threats. The endless solitude and the despair of unfulfilled hope are the cruelest blades. Nick is a professional football player. Though he's now a backup player, he and his teammates still maintain their fitness routines. They firmly believe that a strong physique is essential for facing unpredictable crises. But they never expected such a life-or-death test to arrive so suddenly. One day, Nick and 3 teammates set out for a deep-sea fishing trip. Before departing, Cooper, the burly one, expressed concern. The weather forecast warned of an evening squall. They had to return by 4 p.m. No one took it seriously, since the yacht was theirs, and they could head back any time they wished. At first, Nick and the others fished close to shore, but the catch was disappointingly poor. Cooper suggested moving to a local fishing hotspot teeming with diverse fish. Though it was farther out, the others agreed readily. So, the speedboat set off again, speeding toward international waters. They arrived near noon. Cooper expertly dropped the anchor. Perhaps due to the approaching storm, Nick felt an unusual chill. So he put on a thick, windproof, and waterproof jacket. This unintentional act would later give him a crucial edge in survival. Unnoticed, the sky gradually darkened. Cooper realized the squall was imminent. He signaled everyone to reel in their lines and head back, but an unexpected incident occurred just then. The anchor stuck on something. Can't budge it? Others rush over to help. But even with everyone pulling, the stuck anchor won't move. Nick looks at the sky, feeling a vague unease. He urges everyone to hurry. Cooper comes up with an emergency plan. Tie the other end to the gunnel and start the motor, hoping to use the boat's power to pull the anchor free. Unbeknownst to them, the anchor's lodged in a massive seabed rock. No amount of brute force could free it. The bow lifts high, then a huge wave hits, and everyone is thrown into the sea. As everyone surfaces, they grasp the gravity of the situation. The boat's upside down. Even if we cut the rope, we're trapped. The priority is to flip it, but adrift. The 4 can't get leverage, and with the suction from the air pocket, they can't budge such a large vessel. Cooper thinks the rope's holding it. He dives down to find the end, and uses the propeller to cut it. Unfortunately, after several attempts, he still can't move the boat. Their hearts sink. Before they know it, darkness falls. The forecasted storm is imminent. Nick realizes staying put means death. They must find a way to survive. Cooper takes a deep breath, lowers his head, and submerges. He's trying to get into the cargo hold for supplies. But bubbles soon surface. The vital supplies are stored in a watertight compartment. If opened, it'll flood with seawater. Their refuge could sink. Nick stops Cooper from opening the compartment. Just let him get the life jackets out of the vault. Wearing it can at least bring some comfort. Fortunately, Cooper also found 2 flares. Suddenly, a horn sounded nearby. They realized the ship was approaching. Nick lit a flare without hesitation. The blazing red light rose slowly as the others shouted desperately. But the ship failed to spot these victims. As it disappeared from view, deep despair filled their hearts. Nick kept encouraging them, remembering his phone was also in the locker. Taking a deep breath, he dove underwater, holding a flare. With the flare's light, Nick succeeded in retrieving the phone-storing backpack. The waterproof bag remained intact, but all phones were unusable. However, they soon made a grim discovery. They were in international waters with no signal. Nick urged everyone to power off immediately to conserve battery life. Suddenly, a massive wave hit, plunging everyone underwater. The squall they feared had arrived. Nick led them back onto the boat. The hardest part was yet to come. Howling winds drove torrential rain that pounded their bodies. Even breathing became agonizingly difficult. Suddenly, everything went eerily silent. Even the rain miraculously stopped. They looked around bewildered. Then a towering wave surged toward them. Minutes passed before Nick and the others resurfaced. Their sailboat was nowhere to be seen. Panic searching ended when someone spotted the boat nearby. It was their only lifeline. Prolonged exposure to seawater causes heat loss. That can kill anyone. William shouted from the boat, while others located him by the sound. Finally made it back onto the boat safely. However, Cooper looks in bad shape. He keeps mumbling incoherently, occasionally shouting out loud. Nick immediately recognized this as hypothermia. Without hesitation, he ignited their last flare. It was their only source of heat now. Sadly, Cooper's condition didn't improve. Instead, he turned violent towards the others, forcing them to scramble. They had to physically restrain him. As the rain intensified, Nick forced open Cooper's mouth. After getting some water into him, Cooper stabilized slightly. Meanwhile, their families were growing frantic. They should have been home by now. The storm was worsening outside, yet their phones still wouldn't connect. A patrol officer spotted Nick's car on the shore. His experience told him no one should still be out in this weather. Suspecting trouble, he reported it to the Coast Guard. Just then, Nick's wife's 911 call came through. She reported her husband and 3 friends hadn't returned from fishing. Lieutenant Jason's face darkened. Their speedboat couldn't withstand such a storm. Even strong men like them would suffer from prolonged hypothermia. The cold would take its toll. Still, without confirmation, Jason ordered an all-out rescue effort. At his command, a reconnaissance plane and helicopter lifted into the night sky. But visibility was near zero. Even with night vision goggles, the sea remained invisible. With the torrential rain, finding them was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Lieutenant Jason asked Nick's wife, "Is there anything that can be tracked?" At this moment, the pilot reported that the wind was intensifying. The surging waves rendered the radar useless. He felt it was pointless to continue the search, just as Lieutenant Jason was about to issue the retreat order. Finally, there was good news for Nick's wife. She found a buoy tracker displaying a set of coordinates, which was exactly where Nick had placed the buoy. Upon receiving the order, the helicopter immediately headed toward the sailboat. Meanwhile, Nick and the others were still struggling amidst the surging waves. Not only Cooper, but another teammate, Corey, was also showing signs of hypothermia. The speedboat was like a leaf tossed by the waves, swaying violently from side to side. People were constantly being thrown overboard. However, this time, Corey failed to make it back. Nick knelt on the boat, shouting desperately, but only the rolling waves answered him. Suddenly, the roar of machinery echoed through the air. Everyone shuddered as they spotted a helicopter rapidly approaching. However, the speedboat was too tiny. Amidst the spray, it was nearly invisible. The helicopter circled overhead multiple times, but failed to spot Nick and the others. Finally, Lieutenant Jason ordered a retreat based on past experience. These individuals had likely sunk with the vessel. However, he didn't give up entirely, but instead instructed ships in the vicinity to keep watch on the sea, regardless of how diligently they searched. The 3 were consumed by deep despair. Suddenly, another massive wave struck. This time, the exhausted Cooper failed to climb back. After just one night, only Nick and William remained as survivors. They kept shouting toward the sea, hoping that Cooper and the others might swim back toward the sound. But deep down, they both knew they might lose each other forever. Nick urged William to layer up. Without that thick jacket, he too might have succumbed to the freezing water, losing precious body heat. Suddenly, the yacht lurched violently. As they steadied themselves, they spotted 2 sharks circling nearby. Nick guessed the bait in the fish box had drawn these predators. Their best bet was to stay quiet and remain on the boat. William trembled in fear at first, but Nick's explanation gradually calmed him down. Nick's will to survive was fierce. He'd promised his wife and kids he'd make it home alive to reunite with them. He pleaded with William not to give up, staying close for warmth boosted their odds of survival. Though the squall had passed, turbulent waters still churned, sweeping both men into the sea repeatedly. Each exhausting climb back drained their energy. Nick realized this couldn't continue. He salvaged a rope from the hull and secured them to the gunwale, preventing the waves from separating them. Meanwhile, the families grasped the gravity of the situation and stormed the Coast Guard office. Unprompted, helicopters had resumed searching at daybreak, once the rain subsided. Yet visibility remained near zero, even when aircraft flew overhead without flares. The men were nearly invisible in the swells. William lay shattered on deck, crushed by cycles of hope and despair. Starving after 20-plus hours, he resolved to gamble. Death was inevitable anyway. Over Nick's frantic protests, William plunged into the depths. He decided to risk sinking the boat by opening the watertight compartment to retrieve some food. When William resurfaced, he brought out an energy drink and a bag of chips, vital sources of energy and nutrients. As they ate, Nick and William turned on their phones, but there was still no signal. Nick suddenly stared intently ahead, a ship's outline emerging through the fog. Nick steadied himself, confirming it wasn't a hallucination. Both made the same crucial decision, to leap off the boat and swim toward it. They wouldn't last the night anyway. This was their only chance. But the liner kept moving farther away, and they lost sight of their own boat. Nick instinctively turned and swam back blindly. Chasing the ship was hopeless, but they realized just in time. Not having gone too far, back aboard, William grew delirious, the swim having drained his last strength. He collapsed listlessly on deck, murmuring memories of meeting his wife as Nick winced in anguish. Nick knew what was coming. William untied his safety line, determined to slip into the sea. He'd abandoned all hope. No effort could save a man choosing death. William vanished into the churning waves. Nick knelt on deck, sobbing blankly, unable to contemplate tomorrow, as time crawled toward nightfall. Then Nick snapped alert. A flickering light pierced the dark. After confirming it wasn't a hallucination, he yelled at the top of his lungs. But countless failures made him realize this cry for help was in vain. The flicker of hope in Nick's heart faded again. It was long gone. So disappointment couldn't exist. After what felt like eternity, the sky began to lighten. This marked Nick's 37th hour adrift at sea. Visions of his family flashing through his mind. Knowing he'd reached his limit, he silently untied the waist rope, ready to sink with the waves when a speedboat suddenly appeared. The Coast Guard rescue team had spotted him. Upon receiving the news, Lieutenant Jason immediately dispatched backup crew. As rescue boats and helicopters circled him, Nick could hardly believe his eyes. He'd been miraculously saved. Back home, Nick's near-desperate wife and mother received news of his survival, breaking down in simultaneous tears of joy. But tragically, the other families could only await endless grief.